Hello, this is the ProSource Podcast. I'm Kevin Devine, Director of Digital Marketing Content for ProSource Wholesale. In this series, we'll focus on home remodeling, especially kitchens and bathrooms. You'll hear from those in the know, including our corporate merchandisers, showroom team members, and the trade professionals who ultimately make it happen. We're glad you've joined us. Enjoy. In today's episode of the ProSource Podcast, we're joined by Mark Allen, who's an account manager with ProSource Wholesale. Mark, thanks for joining us here today.
Glad to be here.
And I appreciate you getting the attire memo that we be so matching there. That's nice. So let's start with an easy question. Why don't you tell us who you are and specifically what you do for ProSource in that role?
So I'm Mark Allen. I'm here in the ProSource showroom here in St. Louis and as account manager. So as account manager, we work with members and members' clients and their selection of the remodel products, where anywhere from your flooring products to kitchen and bath.
Okay. How long have you been doing this now for ProSource?
So I've been here on my fourth year here at ProSource.
Been in ProSource for 4 years. How long have you been in the home remodeling industry as a whole?
In the whole 15 years.
Okay.
In and out of the industry, but yes, 15 years is where I've been.
I think you and I were talking about it earlier that you were actually in construction before this.
Correct. So from the framing side, going into on the commercial supply side also, and then doing the residential supply chain.
So in those 4 years in this role, coming from where you did, what have you learned in that time frame about account management?
So what you learn, every particular inside products, exterior products, interior products, they all are different. So you got timelines that are different. The start of the project start at different times. A lot of times in the interior products, they are the last to be utilized, or more of the finishing products versus say the exterior products, which is more the start of the project.
Okay. So when we talk about the project, every homeowner, they're different. Their project is different. The trade pro members that you deal with, they have different projects. When you're looking at those early steps in the process, what questions you like to ask to probe about that project to know where to start and where to guide people toward?
In the process, what I like to do is to especially if it's a remodeling project or even a new construction project, is find out what their inspiration is, because that's going to be the key. Find out what their budget is, because you can have a same look within different budgets. And that's the key to a successful project, is to find out what their inspiration is to get that look, and to find out also what the budget is.
When you ask about their inspiration, do you look to try to maybe get photos of that, or is it more what's in their mind?
Both.
Okay.
Every individual is different. So some will bring pages and pages of different stuff. Some will just use a phone that they've saved. And everyone is different. So every process, so you got to look at, sometimes it's they have no idea what they want. And you start pulling selections from things that they talk, and then it might go completely an opposite way, because it may be something that they see in the showroom that they like better, that wasn't even on their radar of doing that particular look.
So we talked about how people are different. Projects are certainly different too. So when you start to look at that, what are some of the common problems that you've seen people run into, and how do you maybe help them address those problems, especially if they are going through a massive remodel, multiple rooms that they may be dealing with, or even in the entire house, if that's the case?
So you look at each individual room to really fit what they're wanting. So it may be that you have to create a flow between room to room, but at the same time, they may have one style in one particular room and then a completely different style in another. So you have to kind of balance those so they work in the home, and it's not just one room here and one room here in the home. So you definitely have to get a flow for styles and colors to get what they want. But, some people, they want particular looks in their room, and it may not flow with another one, but that is what they want.
Do you find that happening a lot? I can see different colors from room to room. Do you find different styles trending from one room to the next in projects?
You do sometimes, but you get a lot of homes now that are open concept. So with that open concept, most of the time they're going to flow. But when you get into the primary suite, when you get into there, into the bathroom area, it's kind of its own space. So you can create that space that can be different than another space that, say, the kitchen, great room, or the flooring that's in those other rooms to create that space for them.
How do you go about identifying the lifestyle within the home? Meaning, are there pets? Are there kids? Is there a work from home situation? And how might that influence any products that you then suggest?
So that's one of the first questions you do ask, especially in the flooring side, to find out, how the floors are going to be used. So then that will kind of drive you to the correct material to be in the selection process.
Okay. So just a thought that occurred to me here, as I've talked to other account managers, sometimes they find that a lot of the projects they do sort of slant toward a particular product category more often than not, that they end up doing a lot more hardwood or a lot more tile projects. Has that been the case with you, or is it pretty much spanned all flooring product categories?
It spans through all of them. I think the hottest item that is out there is, and it's marketed, is the 100%. We want waterproof floors. We want something that's durable. So that goes into the LVT, LV plank lines, but it doesn't mean that can't be used in hardwood. So you just kind of look and drive and see, but you kind of want to feel for what their concern is and then drive that correct product to them, let them, make that selection based on the selections that I give them. But absolutely, you have to steer them to the correct product based on that.
So how much may color, that if whether it be the homeowner or the trade pro has a certain color in mind, how much does that preference come into the equation when you're going through that product selection? Does that come into play a lot, or does it come into play with its particular products, like maybe more on the tile and carpet side of things? Or
it's all about color, and then not just the color. I mean, you're going to get a lot of rustic looks, especially when you're in the woods. The tile, not so much, but more stone look, even though there's wood tile. But the drive comes to what physically look do they want? Is it going to be contemporary? Is it going to be rustic? Their color palette, what color walls, what color of furniture. So that's going to kind of drive your color range. And it can fluctuate just a little bit of a little gray in a wood, a little bit more warm wood, can drive if you're in the wood, and that can really make a big difference in that home's in the selection process.
So we talked a little bit about this interaction between the trade pro member and the homeowner. How do you balance that interaction from your perspective? And then sort of a follow-up question to that is, which is, I know, sort of a gimme question here, but how important, how critical is the communication in that sort of triangle that we have here?
I'd say the biggest communication is going to be what type of materials selected. So that member knows, hey, we have to do this type of prep for that type of installation. So there's going to be variables there from that aspect, and it's timeline. So when is product going to be available to be an install? So it may be that this is the product that they like, but it doesn't fit that timeline. So then we have to do a reselection to make the timeline that they're wanting to do.
Do you find that happening a lot from a timeline perspective?
Lately, it's been pretty good. Timelines have been good with product. 2 years ago, kind of during the midst of COVID, you had a lot of struggles with timelines, but a lot of people adapted to that.
It actually made me think of something else in that regard. And now I don't remember what it was. So we'll come back to that. We'll just put a pin in that thought that I had there. So one of the advantages from being a member or a homeowner who works with ProSource is the dedicated account manager, you. So what does it mean when we use that terminology? We refer to a dedicated account manager, but what do we mean by that?
So what that means is they have that one contact that they come in every single time. You build that relationship, and that's very important in the way ProSource works. They come in, we know as an account manager how each individual contractor works, because they all work differently. And we focus, their style with their clients. Their clients have selected them for a reason, and they've selected us for the reason that we're here to help them and make their projects go a lot smoother.
So, especially on the member side of things, on the trade pro side of things, that's a lot of repeat business because they're constantly coming back to you. So do you find yourself really personalizing your service specific to them because you know how they operate and what their expectation levels are?
No, not necessarily, because you're going to have that expectation that their client has, and you're going to.
So it gets influence on the other side.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it does. So all around ProSource is dedicated to have that design, not just design, but a lot of choices to select from in our showrooms. And that does give them, a lot of options.
Okay. And I thought of my question. So now we're going to pull a pin out because I thought of the earlier question. And in what you just said helped me realize that. When it comes to the product selection, does the trade pro and the homeowner, when they come in, do they really have an idea of which direction they want to go? And therefore, you're just maybe helping them pick the specific product? Or is there a lot of, well, we could go this way, could go that way, and you sort of guide them? Well, maybe you want to specifically go LVT, or you want to go tile, or you want to go carpet, which I know that's a lot of variation there. It's probably more in the hard surface side. Do you guide them toward a particular category, or do they have more of an idea in mind and you're just maybe helping fine tune that a little bit?
Both. So sometimes they come in specifically for that particular category of material. And then sometimes they're kind of teeter in between different products. And then so you have to show them and tell them the pluses and minuses of the products. And even inside each category, you're going to have pluses and minuses to what they're expecting. And it may be that there may be a particular product that they think will perform a certain way. And once they learn more about the in-depth product, how the actual product's made, how it performs, a lot of times that will change, the direction that they're going, just by learning about the products themselves.
How difficult is it for you to stay on top of all these changes that occur with products and to be able to guide them that way to say, or here are the pros and the cons of that?
A lot of it's going to be just product knowledge. You learn in depth about each particular product, the locations it can be used, because there's some products that can be used in 3-season rooms, and there's some vinyl products that can't be. So depending on how those rooms are, really on how it's being used is really going to drive projects to go using certain products in there. But overall, most of like the LVT products, they're going to perform very similar. There's obviously different between product to product, but they're going to perform in a 100% or a waterproof situation that client's coming in and asking for.
Right. So we talked a little bit earlier about timelines. So how do timelines from product delivery to the project projection, from that standpoint, what's sort of that impact on both a customer service aspect as well as the homeowner expectations when it comes to the overall timelines, both with the product and how that impacts the project as a whole?
So what I try to do is when selections are made, or they're looking at different options and selections. So what I try to do is to check the availability of those particular products to make sure that, hey, this will fit your timeline of your product, because it can affect the timeline, because in certain products, if it's say tile and they're setting cabinets on top of tile, so now your flooring and tile is going to hold up other parts of that project. So that's really important to kind of find out. And if they need to make a reselection, do it as early as possible. That way they know the expectations of, hey, it's going to meet that timeline versus you place the order and they're expecting a timeline that say tile's going to be in 2 weeks. And all of a sudden now it's been pushed out to 4 weeks.
So now I'll give you a chance to maybe brag a little bit here, but how does effective customer service impact the final result of the project?
I think it makes a big impact because if you're meeting the deadlines that they're wanting, you're guiding them with the right products to meet that. So that kind of gives you that expectation is high. Then once you do that, then you're definitely going to get a lot of referral business from that, and that's important as an account manager.
So this may be a bit of an unfair question from a comparison standpoint, but when you're coming into ProSource Wholesale, private showroom for trade pros and their homeowner clients, do you find that there maybe is a higher expectation level from a customer service standpoint because you're able to offer that dedicated service?
I think so. But I think right off the bat, the way we operate as a company, ProSource really takes care of their clients that come in, the members that come in, and we dedicate ourselves to helping them straight up, right up the front, guide them to the right product, guide them to what product they're looking for when they come in, and steer them to where this is the product that really fits their project, their needs, on the use, on how products are going to be used in the home.
Okay. So my next question is a little bit longer, so I'm actually going to read it here. So
that's fine.
You can take a break for a moment there. But so ProSource offers a variety of products. We're talking, flooring. You've got hardwood, laminate, carpet, tile, luxury vinyl. You got bathroom products, tubs, toilets, vanities, showers, and of course, kitchen, cabinets, countertops, faucets, sinks. All of this. We talked mostly here in this discussion about the flooring side of things. How involved do you get on all of the product selections, especially in the realm of the kitchen and the bathroom products that we offer?
So in our showroom, we work kind of unique. So I know some showrooms will, when you get into that kitchen and bath design, the kitchen and bath designers do a lot of the work. In our showroom, we work still hands on hands with the selection process of cabinets, plumbing, countertops, and we balance all of that with the flooring, the tile, especially if it's a bathroom. You're going to have tile maybe in the shower, on the floor. Those all products have to tie together. So when in the selection process, we go through all that. We lay it out so they actually see what it's going to look like. From that, then we turn all of that information over to the designers, and they lay out the bathroom cabinets, the kitchen cabinets, the design that fits that particular cabinet line that the homeowner or contractor has selected.
So it's almost like you're putting together a little mini design board with all these different products so they can kind of see how they would all interact in that sense of the space. And the kitchen bath designer step in and could show the layout.
Correct. Absolutely. And then, we introduce the designer at that point, and then they might have questions or selections or suggestions in the selection process saying, hey, you might want to look at this because of the particular layout. So right off the bat with that introduction, we might be able to, take one step out, and that particular line may not offer a cabinet. So then, you're offering a different selection for them to look at immediately. So it's not a item or that you're having to select later on down the road. It's at the beginning of that process.
And because of how you position that, this is not just how you operate within the showroom. This is how all account managers, this is how the showroom operates. Other showrooms may operate a little bit differently, but here at this showroom, that's the service you can expect and the approach from all account managers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. We work in our showroom as a team. We really do. Even though each account manager has, you work with your clients and particular members, but we work as a team in a whole. And that really makes a good flow. And when members come in or the clients come in, they're comfortable that, hey, that we all can step in and help. Everybody knows everybody, and it has a great feeling in here. Okay.
So now let's pick one particular project. Think of one in your mind. Is there a particular project you've done that stands out in your mind and it was like the most fun, or at least one of the more fun projects that you've done? And if so, why?
So there's one that I did, and it was actually the client this was her home that she grew up in. And so they tore it down to the foundation, left the main home foundation.
They tore down the home she grew up in.
They tore down, but left the foundation.
Okay.
And built the home off of that foundation in a couple different wings. And the uniqueness and the style. So there was a designer involved in going through and doing the selection process of each room was unique, but they all flowed together. And so you kind of walked into more of a kind of a grand entrance, and then you had kind of a east wing and a west wing with a herringbone floor being installed. Really unique. And then everything flowed well, and it was neat to see that process. And from the original, the story of this home, was a home that she grew up in, and she still, brought it to life again, in a completely different aspect for, generations to come. And, so it's kind of neat process.
And the foundation of that house was still there, at least. So really, that was a literal you were saying that's from the ground up,
right?
From where that project went.
Right.
Okay, great. So let's go the other way. What was one of the projects you worked on that was the most challenging, and how did you overcome some of those obstacles that you might have faced?
Well, you have a lot of projects are really challenging because there's so many different aspects or variables in those projects. I really don't have one that just doesn't stand out the most that is like that, but everyone is a challenge because you have the variables of timelines, you have the variables of product selection, or it may be a product that really shouldn't be used in that aspect, but that's what they want. And they do it. And so that's, some of the things and all you can do is steer them to the correct product, but there's times that particular product may not be the best product for that use. But it occasionally does happen.
Okay. So now last question. I'm going to elevate you here a bit.
Okay.
You've got your finger on the pulse of what's going out there with flooring, kitchen, and bath. Give us the inside scoop. What does the future hold for the products across those categories? Where do you see things going?
I think they're going to stay pretty similar to where they're at now.
Okay.
You're going to have color changes, but I think most of them are going to be kind of in the neutral colors. So I don't think anything's going to be really extreme. You will have those that do kind of, I'm going to say, fit outside the normal box of selection. And that's every individual's choice that would do that. But I think where the market is now, and I think, the last few years have really made a big change in our industry. I think some products have been streamlined because they saw, when a high demand comes available or is a need for products and they can't supply it, I think that you saw products kind of go away. They streamlined the products. And I think that's where we'll still have some changes in products. I think performance-wise, especially in the flooring, I think it's really good right now. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot more changes, and it may be just styles.
Improving on what we have.
Yeah. So the products that we have are superior from just say 5-10 years ago in the different lines.
Okay. I appreciate all that. That was Mark Allen, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. I appreciate it. Well, we appreciate you joining us on the ProSource podcast. Please like and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, follow us on social media, visit our website at ProSourceWholesale.com, and visit your local ProSource Wholesale showroom for all your home remodeling needs.